As you can see in front of me, we have a tier list. We've all seen our fair share of tier list videos in the past, so I think we all know how they work. As it said in the title, I'm going to be ranking every single roller coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain on a tier list. So let's just get straight into it. First off, I have not ridden Lex Luthor Drop of Doom, so I'm just going to put that in the not ridden section. Next up is Scream. The whole point of a floorless coaster is to give positive Gs and also to have inversions, and this coaster has inversions. It has 7 in fact. But the thing is, it doesn't have any forces besides the 0G roll, which kinda ruins the point of the whole ride, except for to draw in crowds. But I think the two words that I can best describe it with is bland and forgettable. This ride isn't interesting in any way, and I think the GP also find this very bland and forgettable, because the lines for this ride are always super short. So I will be putting this ride in B tier. Next up is Wonder Woman Fight of Courage. I actually really like this ride. I think it's underrated, but not by that much. It doesn't have like Twisted Colossus level airtime, but it's still there and it's still really good. I think this ride is great, so I am going to rank it in S tier. Now I have Apocalypse the Ride. If you look at some of my past videos, I absolutely hated this coaster before. It was super rough and the restraints were uncomfortable and I couldn't tolerate it. Now that I'm more experienced with coasters, the roughness now doesn't bother me and I can get some really good airtime room with these restraints. And now that I can appreciate the ride, I found out just how weak the airtime is. I don't know if GCIs are always like this, but the airtime wasn't the strongest. It kind of just like barely lifted me up out of my seat and then the roughness bumped me back down. But with that being said, I still really like this ride, so I will be ranking this in the A tier. We have Goliath next, and I think a lot of people really hate this ride, but I just think that the people who are hating on this ride are comparing it to the wrong rides. Like, Goliath is probably one of the worst hypercoasters, but if you compare it to something like Scream or any like other B&M looper or floorless coaster, then it's still pretty good. What's so funny, I keep saying this in my videos, but I think it's really funny, is that this pulls more positive Gs than Scream, but then Scream's pulls more negative Gs than Goliath. I find that every valley on Goliath is really intense with positive Gs, surprisingly. And I can really easily compare those valleys to the inversions of B&M loopers, such as Batman the Ride at Magic Mountain. Short rant over, but I think I'll rank this in upper B tier. Next up is Ninja. I do not have any footage for this ride, so I guess you'll have to just bear with me here. I've ridden this coaster once in my whole life, and it has pulled some pretty good positive Gs. I'm gonna make this quick, so I'm gonna rank it in the C tier. X2 is my number 1 coaster. Do I have to say any more? S tier. Duh. Also, I've not been a Superman Krypton coaster, so that goes in the bottom. Next is Tatu. I really find this ride underrated. I think it's better than Twisted Colossus, so I really like Tatu. I just think that the sensation of flying is so fun, and when you're that high up in the air, it makes it even better. S tier, but it's better than Wonder Woman Fight of Courage. Next up is Riddles Revenge. I used to find this ride underrated, but now I think I've calmed down from the recency bias. All the gigantic conversions give really good flow, and the smaller ones give pretty good whip. Also, I really like standing airtime, but to be honest, the standing airtime on Riddles Revenge is very minimal, so I'll rank this in the upper B tier. I find Batman the Ride really overrated. Like, yeah, it's intense, yeah, it makes you gray out. Also, yeah, it has good whip. But it's like the same problem with Scream. It's just forgettable. Like, you forget it's there, and when you don't ride it, you're not really missing out on anything. I think Six Flags Magic Mountain deserves something better than this. It's still a solid B tier though. Next up is Full Throttle. Though the ride is short, I think it's the best that it could be at this length. The launch is pretty punchy, the hang time is really good, the turns that it has give some light gray out, and the last drop gives insane ejector airtime, and the brakes even make it stronger. I do like this more than Wonder Woman Fight of Courage, so I will be ranking this in the S tier. Next up is Revolution. I think that if this ride didn't have the vertical loop, it would be around the same thrill level as Ninja. The drops are mild, but I still find them kind of fun. The vertical loop pulls some pretty decent positive Gs, and the rest of the layout is not wasted either. I think this is a solid C tier ride. And now it's time for Twisted Colossus. This ride used to be my number 1 for like so long, and though the ride has moved down a few spots, I still find it just as fun as it was a year ago when I rode it. Even without dueling, this ride is an S tier, but with dueling, you're in for a treat. I find West Coast Racers really overrated and the comfort collars suck. I think I'll rank this in the B tier. I really like Viper. In terms of variety of forces, I think this can be pretty closely compared to West Coast Racers, except it just does everything stronger and it's a bit more rough. This has the positive Gs on the loops, airtime on the entry into the mid-course brake run, and hang time on the batwing and corkscrews. I think that this will go into the B tier again. I think that the roughness brings it down a little bit, but nonetheless still an enjoyable ride. Anyways, there it is, a tier list of all the thrill coasters at Magic Mountain. Please comment where you would put all these rides. See ya.